All right, so we had our first test last time. Real quick, kind of review on that. I sent a couple days before the test I sent a message out to a few students who did not watch any of the lecture videos up to that point. And what I noticed was that when the tests were turned in, for the most part, not always, but for the most part, students who watched all the lecture videos, and I can go through and like see when you clicked on the link. And I'm not your parent. I'm not trying to get on to you for like if you waited too long to watch the lecture video, but just giving advice to help you. What I noticed is that students who were watching the lecture videos on the week that I assigned them, and you watched all of them, all of the parts, those students tended to do better than students who either didn't watch any of the lecture videos. That was not a good idea, it turns out. Or number two, like if you watched them just a day or two before the test. That you probably know by now, there's a lot of terminology and a lot of groups, and that can be confusing if you're trying to make sense of all that in a really short amount of time. But if you'll spread it out over several weeks when I assign it, that gives you enough time to kind of get comfortable with the information. All right. So like I said, can't do anything about that now. The good news is on the first exam, no matter what your grade was, like the lowest grade in here, nobody is in trouble yet. Don't panic, but it might be time to make some changes and to figure out a way that's going to work better for you for studying. First thing, and a lot of you are doing this, but first thing I would say is absolutely watch all of those lecture videos. You can feel free, like when you're studying your notes later on, if you read something and it doesn't make sense, feel free to pull them up and watch them again if you need to. I know a lot of you are doing that too. All right. Make sure you're not waiting until the last second. Make sure you send me messages if you have any questions. I know I say that all the time, but really, if you are reading something and it doesn't make sense to you, let me know. Send me a message. So that's all stuff you can do like moving forward, starting now to do better if you need to do that. If you did great, and a lot of students did really good on that first exam, then that's good. Keep doing what you're doing because that's working for you. All right. So after last week of the test and the discussion board and the lab and all that stuff, we've got a good, easy week this week. So that's the good news. All you have is a lecture video to watch on mollusks. So we're working our way up. We had some really simple animals. Mollusks are still pretty straightforward. These are things like clams and scallops and bivalves and things like that. So you're going to watch that lecture video, but we're getting a little bit more complex. Later on, like when we start doing the third exam stuff, that's when we're going to talk about a lot more complex organisms. So watch that lecture video, print off the PowerPoint, take notes, send me any questions you have, and then you've got a review quiz due on Sunday the 20th. All right? That's it for this one. That's really pretty straightforward. Now, the way our labs are scheduled, just one more bit of information before I head out. The way our labs are scheduled, it's kind of strange where we did the classification of species and the invertebrates early on, and then we've got a couple-week break. You don't have a lab this week, and you're not going to have a lab next week either. The next one we're going to do is on protostomes, and one of the things you're going to have to dissect is a clam, which is something we're going to talk about this week. So your next lab is not due for a while. It's not this week or next week, but the following week is when that's due. I think it's the same day as or same week as our next exam. So no pressure. If you don't have time to do this, that's fine. But if you would like to, since we're talking about mollusks, if you wanted to go ahead and do the first part of the lab, feel free to do that. You don't have to complete the whole lab because there's some stuff we haven't talked about yet. But if you wanted to pull up that lab, read through it, definitely just read through the information and see if it helps you understand the lecture stuff. But you could go ahead and do that dissection with the clam if you wanted to. While we're talking about it in lecture, that might actually be a better way to learn it. Like I said, if you can't, you've got time to do it later, but just, if you wanted to make it easier on you down the road too, you'll already have like half the lab done, so that's not something you'll have to worry about later on. All right, so that's it. Like I said, pretty easy week, so definitely if you have any questions about your grade, about how you can study, or just like even the stuff that we're talking about this week, if you've got any questions, send me a message on Blackboard, and I'll be glad to help. Thanks.